Welcome to Dejobnik, your command post for clarity and perspective.
And I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Israel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Here we are, once again, 150 days after Hamas committed the most brutal and barbaric massacre since the Holocaust. And once again, this body has convened not to condemn Hamas, no, not to condemn their atrocities, but to focus again only on the situation in Gaza. As if October 7th never happened, as if there are not 134 innocent hostages that are being held and tortured in Gaza right now. Unbelievable. The UN General Assembly is committed to the survival of a terror organization. The institution that was established in the wake of the Holocaust to prevent atrocities, now united to defend a terror organization no different than the Nazis. If Franklin Roosevelt could see what this institution now stands for, he would be turning in his grave. 5 months have passed, and not even one UN body has condemned Hamas. Not even one. How do you have the conscience to sleep soundly at night? Thousands of Israelis, thousands, still mourn their loved ones, murdered in ways that would make the Nazis proud. Entire communities deliberately turned to ash, deliberately, and the General Assembly cannot even condemn a pogrom? The moral bankruptcy truly knows no bounds. Colleagues, this week the world will mark International Women's Day. Next week, the Commission on the Status of Women will convene to discuss the challenges that women face worldwide. Yet this year, the UN and UN Women's silence in the face of Hamas sexual violence turn International Women's Day into a sick joke. This is the peak of the UN's hypocrisy. The UN claims to care about women. Yet, as we speak, right now, Israeli women are being raped and abused by Hamas terrorists. Where is the UN's voice? Where is your voice? Silence. Deafening silence. Sure, we have heard the empty words of UN officials calling for the release of the hostages. But have we seen any of them take action? Nothing. Zero. Deafening silence. Over the past 5 months, there has not been even one single discussion here dedicated to the well-being of the hostages. Not one debate focused on the sexual violence perpetrated by Hamas. Not one UN panel on the rape and crimes against Israeli women. The UN should be ashamed of its silence. In the future, you won't be able to claim that you didn't know, just as the world claimed after the Holocaust, that you were not exposed to the suffering and horrors. Those who remain indifferent are complicit in the crimes themselves. So today, right before International Women's Day, you will hear testimonies of the sexual atrocities that Israeli women are enduring because of the UN's apathy and indifference.
She went into the shower, and while she was there, one of the terrorists went inside, took his clothes off with a gun towards her head, told her to do everything that he wanted.
הוא הוריד לה את כל הבגדים, ונגע בה בכל הגוף, והוא ביקש ממנה גם לגעת באיבר שלו, בכל מיני דרכים.
She has seen women shot in the crotch, in the genitals. Women were shot in the breast.
They ripped it out of me. They literally ripped my clothes out of me.
There were girls with a broken pelvis due to repetitive rapes. Their legs were spread wide apart in a split.
Saying he saw a, quote, beautiful woman with the face of an angel and 8 or 10 of the fighters beating and raping her. When they finished, they were laughing, and the last one shot her in the head, he said.
We just heard the testimonies of released hostages, first responders, and law enforcement officials. You heard accounts of rape and heinous sexual abuse. Today, these testimonies will receive official recognition from the UN Special Representative on Sexual Violence in Conflict, Pramila Patten. Will you still continue with your silence and indifference? What if these were your daughters, your granddaughters? Would you continue to ignore them, or would you demand immediate action? Why do these women's murders and sexual abuse mean nothing to the UN? Why? Colleagues, in mere hours, SRSG Patten will present her report on the sexual crimes that took place on October 7th. In her report, she will outline that during Hamas's attack, rape, gang rape, necrophilia, sexual violence, and forced defilement were carried out. The report will also highlight that Hamas terrorists sexually abused female hostages and that such acts are likely still ongoing. Will this wake you up? Will it change your priorities? Will you understand that the meaning of a ceasefire is basically abandoning these women to the sexual abusing Hamas monsters? Perhaps you will finally understand that the UN has become a collaborator with rapists and perverts. If the UN's deafening silence continues despite the findings in the report, this will definitely be the last nail in the UN's coffin. It will lose any remaining legitimacy. Colleagues, I call on the Secretary General and the Security Council to convene immediately to finally condemn Hamas's heinous crimes. Hamas must face unrelenting pressure to end their sexual violence and release all of the hostages immediately. I reiterate, any calls for a ceasefire only give Hamas a green light to continue raping and abusing the hostages. Colleagues, through its silence and inaction, the UN has proved that it prefers collaborating with terrorists than standing alongside the vibrant democracy of Israel. Tragically, the UN is not only a terror collaborator. Israel has recently exposed the UN's true colors. In Gaza, it's very sad to say it, in Gaza the UN is a terror organization itself. Dozens of UNRWA employees, dozens, took part in the October 7th massacre, while many more praised the savage attack. Now look at this short footage from October 7th. This is Faisal Ali Musallem El-Naami, an UNRWA social worker, stuffing the body of Jonathan Samarano into a truck to be taken to Gaza. UN employees are kidnapping Israeli children. A Hamas data center was located underneath UNRWA headquarters, connected to UNRWA's power supply, and terror tunnels have been found underneath many UNRWA facilities. Listen to the numbers. Out of UNRWA's 13,000 employees in Gaza, 12%, I repeat, 12% are members of Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and hundreds of them are active terrorists. Friends, UNRWA has been proven to be an instrumental part of Hamas's terror machine. For years, Hamas has infiltrated and poisoned the organization. But UNRWA, even before Hamas hijacked it in Gaza, has always been part of the problem and never part of the solution. UNRWA's very basis for existence is to eternally perpetuate the lie of Palestinian refugehood. No other refugee population, no other, can pass their refugee status down through generations like a family heirloom. Rather than seek to resettle or integrate Palestinian refugees, what we all expect them to do, UNRWA does the opposite. It ensures that a Palestinian refugee will forever remain a refugee, as will their children, grandchildren, and every following generation, until one day they can all storm into Israel to claim it for themselves, exactly as Hamas did on October 7th. But beyond perpetuating Palestinian refugehood, UNRWA schools are breeding grounds for incitement, hatred, and martyrdom. Numerous studies, have reported on the terror glorification, jihad encouragement, and anti-Semitism taught in UNRWA schools every day. UNRWA, with international financing, your financing, is grooming Palestinian children into terrorists. After all that has been exposed about UNRWA, it's very clear today. UNRWA will never again operate in Gaza as it has prior to October 7th. Its role in Gaza is finished and it must be replaced. UNRWA must be defunded and dismantled. Supporting UNRWA today is supporting Hamas. And whoever supports Hamas supports a future of bloodshed, not a future of peace and coexistence as we want to see in Gaza, in Israel, everywhere. Mr. President, while we hold this discussion in this hall, there are hostages being tortured, being abused, being defiled. This is not speculation. It is fact. This is the hellish reality that Israeli women and men have been suffering for nearly 5 months. And this organization's inaction is unforgivable. Yet, even worse than its inaction, the ceaseless calls for a ceasefire are clear proof that the UN prefers for the hostages' suffering to continue. I implore you to make the release of the hostages your #1 priority. That could change everything. The rape cannot continue. The sexual violence cannot continue. And Hamas's survival through a ceasefire cannot continue to be promoted, advanced here. Instead of calling for a ceasefire with no preconditions, the General Assembly and every UN body should be demanding that Hamas terrorists, they should turn themselves in and release all hostages. These are the only acceptable terms for a real ceasefire. Hamas must be eliminated. Rapists, mass murderer must never be given a free pass by the UN, and terror can never be tolerated. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Dejobnik signing off.